What's going on, gamers? Today I want to talk about Oryx, the father of Crota. What I plan to try to do is to go through the information that is available to give you guys a clearer picture of the Hive and what seems to be their driving force. But before I get into that, I have to get to my shoutouts. My shoutouts are how I like to try to show appreciation back to the community that has gotten me this far. So I'd like to give shoutouts to Josh Davidson, Giovanni Estrada, Marty McGee, Sean Nicholson, Gunnar Sinclair, Jason Deere, Zombies Slayer, and Number Wonder. Now, by this point, most of you know I'm not the typical YouTuber. I kind of thrive on the comments that you guys make, and this video actually sprang from a conversation that I had with one of my subscribers. He actually contributed to the creation of this video, so a major shout out to Raza Rizal. Master Rahul actually said research into the ciphers and runes of the Hive leads the Cryptarchs to believe the Hive sects all serve one great master. But it is not Crota as you may assume. It is Oryx. Now, by this point, you have probably done all the missions on the moon and smashed the Shrine of Oryx a time or two. Now, in that particular mission, the Hive were communicating with something far off. If you caught my Story of Tolan video, Tolan stated that the Hive exists in another dimension. So the far off is just the tip of the iceberg. The Hive have been conquering worlds for a long time. In the mission, The World's Grave, you get a small hint as to how long. The Hive keep a database of all the worlds they have overrun. Now, I'm sure you chuckled at the "they've broken the Bekenstein limit" quote that Dinklebot says. Well, let me explain what that means. Now, the Bekenstein limit is the upper limit of information that can be contained within a given finite region of space, which has a finite amount of energy. Or, conversely, the maximum amount of information required to perfectly describe a given physical system down to the quantum level. Now, the Bekenstein boundary, which is more relatable in this scenario, is a computationally derived limit that specifies a theoretical maximum amount of data that could be stored in a physical space, and it is something we will never approach with our current technology, which is why it is often talked about in quantum computing circles, computer theory courses, and physics. Now, where it gets a little more mind-bending is how would you break the limit? You would actually need to work around the known laws of physics. Now, one of these possible workarounds involves phase-shifting atoms between parallel universes. So basically, at any given time, parts of the physical media would exist in this universe, while other parts would be stored in a parallel universe, only to be shifted in and out as needed. Or you just basically had the technology to just simply break the laws of physics. There are whispers of shrines of the fabled Oryx peppered across the entire system, only he is no fable. There are many different sects such as the Blood of Oryx and Hive majors like Sarduk, the Eyes of Oryx, dedicated to him. For Oryx to be so ingrained into the Hive with as many worlds as the Hive have taken, Oryx would have to be an ancient member of the Hive ranks. Depending on how long the Hive have been in existence, he may even be primordial, dating back possibly before the first beginnings of life on Earth. Now, in the description of the Crux of Crota, it makes a reference to the osmium throne that Crota, son of Oryx, was heir to. It is a hard, brittle, bluish-white transition metal in the platinum group that is found as trace elements in alloys, mostly platinum ores. Osmium remains lustrous even at high temperatures. It has a very low compressibility, and correspondingly, it has a high density, extremely high, rivaling that of a diamond. Because of its hardness, brittleness, and low vapor pressure, the lowest of all the platinum groups of metals, it has a very high melting point, the fourth highest of any element. Solid osmium is difficult to machine, work, or even form. Now, once you take osmium through a few chemical processes, it actually gives off a toxic gas and even has a greenish tone to it. Does that seem familiar? Now, one would have to assume that the Hive value osmium to create their god kings thrown from it, much in the same way our own ancient civilizations did. Now, it was common practice to see kings from Egyptian civilizations all the way to kings of Europe to have thrones made out of gold. If you want to give off the presence of power, make your seat from the most valuable thing available. In the Ritual of Sacrifice quest, you are to destroy 2 ogres known as the Forsaken. Why? Because if you don't, the Hive plan to make them ritual sacrifices to contact Oryx. Now, Tolan has stated that they serve but one purpose: to die. Now, how does one call through the darkness, through the void of the eternal night sky? Through the pathways of the Hive linked to their ancient rotting deities, with suffering. The Forsaken are conjured and birthed through ritual, meant to serve as worship to gods of a higher plane of misery. To perform a ritual sacrifice is to tempt a god's hunger. What then if a being of light were to taint such a ritual? Would the Hive be punished? Would their gods grow angry? Now the Crucible map, the Cauldron, is actually one such ritual site. Now secured and maintained by the Crucible, scheduled study of its remnants suggests sacrificial purposes. Were there other forms of life that were given audience with the reigning monarch and judged before the power of the darkness? If you're randomly running around Earth by the Skywatch, you occasionally bump into Urzok the Hated. The sword he wields is slightly different than every other Hive Knight you'll ever encounter. Reason being, his role is that of the executioner in these rituals. Now, at one such site, Toland the Warlock had an incident that gives even more insight. 4 sounds, oft repeated, but only 4, though I am on the trail of a 5th, faintly heard from the buzz that once spilled from the shrine. Ir, Zol, and Yul. It is in these sounds that I fear yet another Hive secret hides, perhaps beyond their gods, perhaps in accord with them, perhaps that there are just a Hive translations of worlds we call yet another name, but I believe above all things they call to some kind of being. Beings that once lived or still live somewhere buried amongst us. Beings that the Hive perhaps owe their very existence to. It is no secret that Toland believed that the Hive were the pinnacle of evolution. If Crota was but a young spawn to these ancient Hive gods, then Zol, and Yul must be some of the pantheon of the Hive gods. All of these gods have one that is more ancient than they were, something seemingly the source that they owe their very existence to. Now I said before the launch of Destiny that the Hive have the strongest connection to the darkness. When a wizard is firing arc shots at you, Bungie had stated that the wizards draw their power directly from the darkness. The Hive have great hatred for the light, and to them, the eternal struggle between light and dark is not only a war, it is a crusade. All light must be devoured so the darkness can reclaim the universe. If Oryx is possibly the beginning of the Hive, and truly the one who has orchestrated the Hive to destroy countless worlds, you would almost wonder, is Oryx the darkness? That's food for thought, ladies and gentlemen. If he is not, then he is most certainly very, very closely related to it. Well, if you like this type of content, just hit that like button, or leave a comment, or if you want to see more, just hit that subscribe button. But as always guys, have a good one.